When you factor in rising wages, it can be argued there's actually no inflation.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Affinity, provider of the CRM for the private capital relationship economy. Affinity knows who has the best relationship with the right startup. Affinity.co/marketplace.
I'm David Brancaccio. The big economic story of the morning is set to be the release of the Consumer Price Index for June. The pros are forecasting prices will be up 3.1% in a year, down from 3.3% a month earlier. So some improvement is expected. We will see. But amid all the frustration about inflation, we do note that incomes have continued to rise, up by more than inflation in the last year, where that went up 3.9%. Marketplace's Mitchell Hartman has more.
Inflation peaked at 9% a year in June 2022, blowing way past wages, which never grew by more than 6%. But by May of last year, real earnings, that's the purchasing power of wages after accounting for price increases, were gaining ground month after month.
Some consumers tell us that their income gains have outpaced inflation.
But Joanne Shu, director of the University of Michigan Consumer Surveys, says that hasn't improved sentiment much.
Those gains have been heavily eroded by continued inflation and specifically continued high prices,
which is taking a toll on consumer spending. Mike Fratantoni is chief economist at the Mortgage Bankers Association.
We're seeing some caution pulling back from discretionary items when they have the ability to do so.
The top third of earners have become more optimistic, but Joanne Shu says most middle and lower income consumers are just trying to catch up and see little prospect of getting ahead. I'm Mitchell Hartman for Marketplace.
S&P and NASDAQ futures are down 0.1% each. Dow futures down about 0.2%. Citigroup is still too risky a company. That's the assessment of the Federal Reserve and another bank regulator. They're fining Citi $136 million and telling it to speed up an overhaul to make sure the, quote, too big to fail bank can fail if some emergency were to arise without bringing down the U.S. economy. Citibank has a problem with its safety systems. Marketplace's Nova Safo is here live with more.
Well, David, Citigroup has been a uniquely complicated operation for a long time, even among giant financial institutions. And regulators say that complexity is still hampering Citi from being able to respond in an agile way to sudden economic shocks, both here and abroad. In response, Citi's CEO Jane Fraser acknowledged that the bank needs to move faster. Regulators have been pointing to ongoing deficiencies for years at the bank, did so again with the issuance of this fine, saying that Citi has made progress but must do more to meet the terms of a consent decree struck in 2020. That decree requires that the bank get better at understanding the risks it faces among the various parts of its operations.
Now, banks are required to produce what we like to call a living will, how they would wind down operations with some dignity if that ever became necessary. Citi had another setback the other day. What happened?
Yeah, regulators said Citi's latest living will was just not good enough, specifically having to do with data crunching to figure out its vulnerabilities in certain types of investments called derivatives. And the government said Citi just didn't have its act together on that front. Citi's struggles are because its structure is really complicated. It's a combination of a number of businesses. It shed some assets since the financial crisis, but its structure made it vulnerable then and continues to make it vulnerable now.
All right, thanks. March 2021 was a bad month for some of the biggest banks in the world, UBS, Morgan Stanley, Nomura, Credit Suisse, banks that had lent a fortune to an investment fund called Archegos that suddenly unraveled. Those banks lost a combined $10 billion in the mess. It was a nail in the coffin for Credit Suisse, which is no longer with us. Yesterday afternoon, a jury in New York found Archegos founder Bill Hwang guilty of both fraud and market manipulation. The firm's CFO was also found guilty on 3 counts, including racketeering and fraud.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by C3 Generative AI. C3 Generative AI enables rapid access to secure, traceable, hallucination-free insights from enterprise systems, all while using any LLM, helping enterprises turn the invisible into the obvious. Learn more at c3.ai. And by The Economist, devoted to providing independent journalism that makes sense of the news shaping the world. More at economist.com or with The Economist app, newsletters, and podcasts.
I urge you to be on the lookout for a kind of persistent fraud that targets people looking for work, a fraud that's evolving with technology. Be very careful of job offers that come unsolicited. Marketplace's Stephanie Hughes has more.
Job scams come in a couple different flavors. 1, fake postings on legitimate job search websites. 2, scammers reaching out to people directly, often through text.
Saying, I'm a recruiter and I know you're in the market and we found you would be a good fit.
Eva Velasquez leads the nonprofit Identity Theft Resource Center. Last year, her organization saw a 118% increase in job scams specifically aiming to get people to share their personal information, which the perpetrators might then steal or sell. She says scammers are taking advantage of how the way we work has changed.
There's a lot more remote work. We're doing a lot more upfront digital-only transactions. And because of that, it's very confusing for people who are new to the workforce.
That makes texts or WhatsApp messages from a scam employer about interviews, job offers, or onboarding seem real. Other scammers use fake jobs as a way to get people to send them money.
It's at the very beginning when they say, you've got the job, congratulations.
Rhonda Perkins is with the Federal Trade Commission's Bureau of Consumer Protection. She says the scammer will say something like, you need to buy a computer to do this job. They'll send a fake check, and then they'll say,
oh, wait a minute, oops, we sent too much money. We need you to send some of it back.
And then the person will be urged into sending their own money and still be without a job. Anytime a potential employer asks for money, it should be a red flag, says Selena Larson with the cybersecurity company Proofpoint. Also, she says, beware of out-of-the-blue job offers that are also light on the details.
So things that are sort of overly simplistic or little to no information about what the job actually is.
She also says do research on any potential employer who reaches out, even if they seem legit, to see if other people have received similar offers that ended up being scams.
We've even seen in some cases LinkedIn profiles of recruiters say in their bio, we don't send unsolicited job offers or things like that.
Larson says when you're in the market for a job, you might be stressed and excited to accept an offer. That's what scammers are counting on. And if you do fall for any kind of a scam, the consensus is don't be ashamed. Tell people about it and reach out for help. I'm Stephanie Hughes for Marketplace.
And I'm David Brancaccio. It's the Marketplace Morning Report from APM, American Public Media.